Hello, everyone. Welcome to Turing Machine. This is a fairly new. I think it only came out in the U.S. sometime this year. Obviously, I'm playing the digital edition. It's a board game that really, I don't know. It's not really a board game, right? It comes in a box, but it's a logic puzzle game. You can play, I guess, with 1 to 4 players. There's not much. Unlike many deduction games, you're not like asking the other players questions. So there's not really that much interplay between multiple players. You're just each racing separately to find the answer. I think you get pretty much the whole experience by playing single player, but maybe I'm wrong. Um, and what I like about this game, I mean, I don't know, I like logic and deduction games and puzzles in general. This is kind of a random puzzle generator that makes interesting puzzles. And one of my favorite things about it so far is that it has this kind of meta puzzle layer where you're not just thinking about clues that are directly given to you, but rather there are constraints on how the puzzles can be constructed. And thinking about those is a huge part of actually getting to the answer in as few steps as possible. I like that kind of thing. So full disclosure, I made several attempts to make the first Turing Machine video, and I keep screwing it up. I usually, for most of my games that I do on the channel, I generally like upload every game, every playthrough, so you get like rather than a highlight reel, you get the experience of what it's like to play the game. Whether that involves frustration or what. But I feel like for a puzzle game, it's really shitty viewing to watch me like screw up the puzzle and then spend a bunch of time figuring out what I did wrong 20 minutes ago or whatever. So I'm just gonna not upload all those, or not publish anyway, all those broken attempts. So the way that playing this game works is we are trying to guess a 3-digit number where each digit is either a number from 1 through 5. Some number of hints will narrow down what that number is to exactly one possibility. Of course, otherwise it wouldn't be a very interesting puzzle. In this case, we have 5 of these cards that are called verifiers. And each one is verifying some particular aspect of a number. So we'll compose a number that we're interested in. Let's say 432. Notice the digits are color coded. So like when it says purple, that means the 3rd digit. And the purple circle is always the 3rd digit. The blue triangle is the 1st digit, and the yellow square is the 2nd. This is just for convenient reference. There's nothing like meaningful about it being a circle. Anyway, so let's say we had 432 as our guess. This verifier knows whether in the real solution purple is even or odd. And we'll tell it, hey, I'm thinking about 432. Do you like 432 or not? And it'll say, yes, I like it. No, I don't like it. And from that, we'll know, if the number we submitted had the correct parity for purple, we'll get a yes. If it had the wrong parity for purple, we'll get a no. And then there's, more complicated verifiers. Like this one counts how many ones are in the code. And so if we sent 432 and this thing said, I like it, that would mean there's 0 ones in the code. If it said, I don't like it, it would mean there's 1, 2, or 3 ones in the code. And so on. This finds which of the 3 numbers is uniquely largest. Notably, there must always be exactly one criterion of the many on the card that the card is actually looking at. Playing on this difficulty level, that also means that exactly one of these things will be true. But at higher difficulty levels, there are cards where like multiple things can be true at the same time, but the verifier is only checking one of them. We'll talk about that later. This one checks the preponderance of even or odd numbers, and this one checks whether the numbers are all in the same order. So the other meta puzzle elements that are interesting to know about are that... So first of all, as I said, the conditions checked by the verifiers are going to narrow it down to a single solution, a single code. And second, that if you remove any one of the verifiers, the conditions they are checking will not narrow it down to a single unique code. So if I did this, just arbitrarily choosing A, then these four are guaranteed not to narrow it down to a unique code, a unique 3-digit number. And that is actually a really powerful thing you can use to reason about well, we'll talk about like how you can use that later, I guess. Before I get started on this actual puzzle, I wanted to make it easy. If you guys have an interest in playing this puzzle along with me, you can go check out the rules. They're pretty short. And also, I did a bad job of explaining all of them just now. If you'd rather just trust me on it, I wouldn't. If I were you, I'd read the rules. If you go to turingmachine.info, that's their website, you can in the problem search, you can enter this code here, and it'll give you a table that looks like this. You can just copy and paste the table, starting from A and going down to 533, and paste it in the tabletop sim in this Turing Machine scripted mod, and hit submit, and it'll deal out these same cards. If you're playing in cardboard, you have the actual game yourself, then these, of course, are the numbers that you'll want, but you probably know that already. So let's get started with, is there anything we can tell... Oh, I haven't even told you the rules about how the structure of the game works. So each round, you're going to choose a 3-digit number that you want to ask questions about. Let's say, I guess my example was 432 earlier, right? And then you can ask questions of up to 3 of these verifiers, and they'll give you a yes or no. And at the end of each round, after you're done asking your up to 3 questions, you can say, I think I know the answer. And if you're right, then you're scored on how quickly you got there, how few rounds and questions you needed. If you're wrong, you lose the game. Tough shit. You don't get to go again. So don't guess unless you know the answer. That's a more important thing in multiplayer. In solo, I don't know. If you get it wrong, you could consider continuing to play to try to understand what it is you were wrong about. Anyway, so if you do want to play along with me, like, probably now's a good time to pause the video, solve the puzzle yourself, and then you can come back and compare to my solution. So, is there anything we can tell without asking any questions? There often is, because we know about the uniqueness constraint. In particular, B has a very easy deduction you can make, that it can't be the case that there are 3 ones. Because if there were, we could turn all of these face down and still find the right code. Because this criteria would be enough to uniquely determine a code. And it's never possible to turn any of these face down and still uniquely identify a code from the criteria that the remaining face-up verifiers give you. So, we can say in our little notepad, type here, not 3 ones. There you go. So we've learned something already without asking questions, just from the structure of the kinds of questions we're allowed to ask. Now, we can't conclude, for example, that there aren't 3 2s. Because there's nothing here that would obviously be a single criterion where if there were 3 2s, you wouldn't need any of some of the other criteria. It's the presence of this card that rules out that possibility. A slightly more interesting thing is that we can also say there aren't 2 1s. That one we can't do in isolation. We have to also look at E. If there were 2 1s, then the numbers would not be in any order. So the rulebook clarifies that what this card means by order is, strictly increasing or strictly decreasing. So like 1 2 2, that's not in order. That's not ascending order. So if there were any 2 1s, you couldn't have the pieces be in order. And so even with this turned face down, you would still have all the information you needed. The numbers are not in any order, and then these would be enough to solve the puzzle. So we can further say there are 0 to 1 1s. Is there anything else that's immediately looking useful to me here? Or like guaranteed solvable? I don't think so. Good players probably would see more you can do here, because there often is quite a lot you can do before you get started. There are numerous codes we could rule out because we know there is a unique largest number. So the code can't be 331, for example, because this rule wouldn't be able to give us a check mark ever. But there's not any obvious, like, one of these criteria we could rule out based on knowing that 331 is impossible. So I think in round 1, I'd like to find out what's happening with C and E at least. And then D is probably good. So let's just compose a query that helps us find out something about C, which is to say it just needs to have unique numbers. I don't really care what they are. But I'd like also to have them not be in order, because the numbers being in no order is the most likely outcome, right? Only a quarter of the time would they be ascending. Actually less, right? Because if you less than a quarter of the time is it ascending, and less than a quarter of the time is it descending. Because if the numbers were all unique, guaranteed, then it would be exactly a quarter of the time that they're ascending. You would just flip a coin to see if the second is bigger than the first, and then flip another coin to see if the third is bigger than the second. But since there can be repeats, it's less than that. So no order is definitely the most likely outcome. So let's test for that. Because hopefully that'll mean we can stop asking E any questions. As far as C, it's all equally likely. Oh, hang on. No. I thought there was another thing we could do here that I won't talk about. Okay, so let's 342. That's going to be what I'm going to be guessing or asking questions about in round 1. So let's start by asking E. E says, yep, I like 342. So that means that we have solved E. So we'll never need to ask E another question again, because we know that it's checking for the digits not being ordered. Great. I said I wanted to ask C, so what do you say? Is yellow or orange the biggest number? It's not. So let's note that. Oops. This digit thingy. I always forget. You gotta type in the center. Orange, not biggest. And like one of the, I don't know what button it is, but there's some button I type when I'm typing that like, it's like T or something, makes it print some shit about copying something to the clipboard. I don't know. Anyway. So we know orange isn't the biggest. So it's either blue or purple that should be biggest. And I think I said I wanted to ask about the preponderance of even and odd numbers. Let's do that. Yes. So it does not like that there are more evens than odds, which means there are more odds than evens. So let's note that as well. Nope. Ah! There we go. So there are more odds than evens. So that's what we learned in round one. Now we can oh, I have to take notes on this. This is illegal play. What a dummy. You are required to note what you did. Like that? 3, 4, 2. Now these are not centered, but it's easier than like trying to draw a 3 or make 3 separate text boxes. And I want to note that I asked C, and I was told no, orange is not biggest. I asked D, and I was told no, there aren't more odds than evens. And I asked E, and I got a yes. The numbers are not in any order. There's more we can do here. Since orange isn't the biggest, it can't be 5. Right? Well, those are maybe a little unnecessarily large. Let's just cross it out a little bit more quietly. Now we can't say that anything else is 5 or that orange is 1 or something like that. So they're more odd than even. Does that help me, now that I know 2 of the criteria of these verifiers, is it possible that I could maybe arrange to find out any more of these that would be superfluous, that would be unnecessary? For example, if I somehow knew that there were 3 even numbers, then like this would be superfluous. So like there can't be a verifier here telling me that there are 3 even numbers, but sadly none of them are trying to tell me that. Knowing there are more odds than evens, yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, let's try a different... Well, we're definitely going to try a different number because we want to talk to C again, and we want to see if it likes, let's say, blue being the biggest. Well, so at the end of round 1, I'm going to not say that I know the answer. So we're going to move on to round 2. I guess I also should have mentioned difficulty levels. We're playing on the standard difficulty level, which is one of the relatively tame ones. It's not easy, but it's not hard, and it's not either of the 2 added difficulty modes. Okay, so I want to make sure that blue is the biggest when I ask this a question. If I ask A a question, it won't really care. Yeah. A and B each have exactly 2 possibilities left. And as long as I don't include 2 or more ones, I'll be asking A or B something that'll clarify for me exactly what's happening. So, I mean, we can guarantee for sure that if I ask 3 more questions this round, I'll be able to narrow it down and get the answer exactly. But hopefully we can stop before asking all 3 and maybe get the answer that way. So I guess 542 is a fine group of things to ask. And let's talk to C again. But first, let's write down that 542 are the numbers I'm going to ask about. C says, yes, blue is the biggest. So we can write that here. And, oh my god, I hate the text box controls in this game. Which one? That's C. So we'll note that we got a yes from C. Now we know purple isn't the biggest, and blue definitely can't be 1. Could it be 2? If it were, that would mean yellow and purple were both 1, which is fine as far as clue C is concerned. But we already know from clue B, we marked that there can't be 2 1s. So I don't think blue can be 2 either, because that would leave us with problems in the number of 1s that we have. Okay. So we've learned that blue is the biggest. Does that help somehow? I don't know. It seems likely so far that blue is 5, because we have a lot of odd numbers and blue is a big one, but that's no guarantee. There's numerous ways it could not be 5. So let's ask about purple's parity and see if this helps. Well, slow down. There are only 4 combinations remaining of criteria that could be being tested. Perhaps purple is even and there are no 1s. Perhaps purple is odd and there are no 1s. Perhaps purple is even and there's a 1. Perhaps purple is odd and there's a 1. Right? Those are the 4 universes we could be in. By asking questions of A and B, we can narrow down which of those 4 universes we're in. But we could also stop to consider, is there any combination of answers from A or B that would be impossible, that would make the problem unsolvable? And in particular, if there's only one combination of answers from A and B that would make the problem solvable, then we can just assume that's the answers they will give me. And we could solve it without asking A or B. Or maybe there are 2 possibilities, but in both possibilities A is odd. In that case, we could skip asking A and just ask B and still get to the answer. So, in a casual game, you definitely could just ask A or B here and then try to narrow things down. But I think, the meta reasoning is kind of my favorite part of the game, so I'd like to take some time to think about these possibilities. Suppose I were told that there is a 1 and that blue is even. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Purple. Because then the 1 would have to be yellow, since purple's even and blue is bigger than 1. And we would also know that because there's more odds than evens, that blue is also odd. And it would have to be bigger than purple, but it still could be like 5, 1, 2, or 3, 1, 2, or 514. I think there would be three possibilities in that universe, right? And there'd be no way we could narrow it down from these clues that we have. So I don't think it's possible that purple is even and there's a 1. It just seems like we couldn't solve the puzzle if that were the case. So what if purple were even and there were no 1s? Would the puzzle be solvable then? If there were no 1s and purple were even. Well, since we know there are more odds than evens, blue and yellow would both have to be odd. So we'd have odd, odd, even, no 1s, and the puzzle not in ascending or descending order. And also, blue is the biggest. Oh, I guess here's a point that I should have seen a little bit more straightforwardly. If blue is biggest, and the puzzle isn't in descending order, then yellow must be, well, let's say it the other way. Purple must be at least as big as yellow. If purple were less than yellow, we would be breaking the rule that there's no order. So in fact, if there is a 1, it has to be yellow. Okay. And we said if purple is even, then the problem is unsolvable in that universe, right? If there's a 1 and purple is even. What if there's a 1 and purple is odd? Maybe I'd rather ask about it that way. If there's a 1 and purple is odd, then I think there's a unique solution, right? No. Wait, maybe not. Because we know yellow is the 1. Purple would have to be 3 in order to be larger than yellow and still be odd. But blue could be 4 or 5, and we'd still have a preponderance of odds. And the puzzle still wouldn't be in descending order, and all these other things would be true. So I don't think there can be a 1 whether or not purple is even or odd. So, okay. Let me just double check that. If there's a 1 and purple is even, then we must have odd 1 and then 2 or 4. But blue could be 5. It could be 514 or 512, and those we could never prove which of those it is. And then there's other things it could maybe be, but that's 2, and that's enough to prove that we can't be in that universe. So if there were a 1 and purple were odd, again, the 1 still would have to be yellow. So odd, odd. Purple would have to be 3. And blue would have to be at least 4, but it could be 5 or 4 without breaking any rules. And there wouldn't be any new rules to test. Okay, so yeah, there's no 1s. Let's write that down. That's verifier B. No 1s. Okay, and now we can just ask, if there are no 1s, does even or odd give us multiple solutions? If either of them does, then that can't be the case, and we don't have to ask A. But so already, the decision to stop and think before asking another question has paid off. We were able to figure out what answer B was going to give us without talking to it a single time. So suppose that purple were even. Then we would know the other two numbers are both odd. I think this would lead to a unique solution. If the other two numbers are both odd and there are no ones... Oh, speaking of which, let me... None of these are 1. There we go. So if purple were even, then blue and yellow would both have to be odd. And to make sure blue is the bigger one, it would have to be 5, 3. And then purple being even, well, it couldn't be 2, because then it would be descending, which we know is impossible. So we would have 5, 3, 4. So if purple's even, we have a unique solution. So that's still possible. What if purple's odd? Is there a unique solution then? I don't think so. Because we'd have a... Well, that would make purple 3, right? Yeah. This isn't going to be a unique solution. Because if we also choose yellow to be 3, which is not ruled out by any of the information we have, then blue could be either 5 or 4 with no conflicts with any of our criteria, right? So in fact, we can say that the only way there's a unique solution is if there are no ones, which we've already written down, and that purple is even. That forces 5, 3, 4. So I'll write this down here so I don't forget it. And boy, I'm going to be mad if I got this wrong again. So let's do a quick... Like I said, I did a few videos of this. This is on an easier difficulty than the ones I was trying to do, so... Let's 5, 3, 4. Is there any of these that disagree with that? Well, I mean... I guess the way to do that is to say, okay, if 534 is the code, then this verifier must be checking for even purples. It must be checking for no ones. Blue biggest. More odds. No order. And then we could try to say, does this combination lead to a unique... I don't know, I feel like that's what we've already done. So I'm going to go to the website, which you guys can't see at the moment, and tell it that I have guessed 534. I believe that to be the answer. Please don't let me be wrong. This is the correct code. Okay, great. So the solo mode of this game has a little feature where you can ask it if you did better than the computer did. They have a computer that tries to solve this using some algorithm which doesn't know as much. Like, you definitely can write a computer that solves in exactly the same way I've been doing. Whatever their computer does, it doesn't do all of these things, because if you make a few of these deductions, you generally beat the computer. But anyway, you can tell it, you know, in round 1, I got a no from C and D, and a yes from E. And in the next round, I got a yes from C, and then I stopped asking questions. And the machine, so it's a good thing we stopped so early, the machine also took 2 rounds, but it took 5 questions. So they give you the win for tying the machine, but we actually did it in fewer questions. They don't tell you what questions the machine asked, which I find somewhat puzzling. Why not? So that's something you can compare your score to if you played this at home. Did you do better than this? I suspect better than this is possible, because I'm not like some genius savant level player. But also I suspect someone who's playing this game for the very first time would not stop at 4 questions. They would go to at least 5, perhaps 6. So we could even go back and, you know, back. I can ask the computer for the solution as well, and it says, yeah, A is even. There's no ones. Blue is the biggest. There are more odds than evens, and they're not in order. So it tells me what criteria the 5 of these were testing for as well. So that is a single game of Turing Machine, and instead of trying another game at a higher difficulty in the same video and fucking everything up, I'm going to just publish this video where I finally got something right. Feel free to let me know if you guys found a better solution to this. I would love to hear it. Sometimes you can get a solution that's not like better, but you just got luckier in some way, right? Maybe you asked C and it told you you tried blue being biggest on your first try, and then it's like, okay, yeah, you didn't have to ask so many questions of C to narrow things down. There's no shame in that, of course. I'd still be happy to hear about, if you got a solution that was shorter than mine by luck or by skill. But I suspect there's a solution out there that can skillfully do this with just one or two questions. There often is on a sort of, I don't know. On easy, you can sometimes do it with 0 questions. I've never done it, but people have. And 1 or 2 questions is pretty common, I think. I don't know how common that kind of thing is on standard difficulty, which is what we're playing here. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this intro to Turing Machine. Fun little puzzle game, I think. In future videos, I'll try showing you some of the harder puzzles and maybe not screw it up this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.